Stolen songs or miscellaneous melodies? You decide. It's time for riff off or rip off. Right, this is the bit of the video where I'm obliged to say don't take it too seriously as a bit of a disclaimer. So in the words of 2D TV's representation of Arnold Schwarzenegger,
just a bit of harmless fun.
If you got that reference, well done, because that was obscure. With some of the riffs here, it's pretty much fair to say, look, that's just been stolen, or if you're being very nice, a bit of a homage. For example, Smells Like Teen Spirit, Kurt Cobain was often quite upfront, and almost kind of proud if he'd stolen a riff from somewhere. I'll put a link to a video up here where before playing Smells Like Teen Spirit he does play More Than a Feeling and starts to sing the vocal line over the top, as a bit of a nod to the guys that he'd taken the idea from in the first place. Similar to Kurt Cobain's proud flaunting of riffs he'd borrowed from elsewhere, it's kind of fair to say the same for the Hives. Like, their song Hate to Say I Told You So is pretty much a homage to Iggy and the Stooges and Search and Destroy and all the kind of garage punk stuff. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel, and part of their shtick is they're doing this garage rock thing, but they're doing it really well. Another example that's maybe a little bit cheeky of me was to put in TNT by AC/DC and No Sleep Till Brooklyn by the Beastie Boys. This is a long tradition in hip hop of sampling songs and licks and kind of riffs and stuff, and that's what that is. So I could understand why you might have some gripes about those two examples. There's a few more interesting things to do with that song. So reportedly Blur wrote song 2 as a kind of parody of kind of grunge music rather than an actual song. Somewhat ironically, went on to become probably their biggest known anthem. And if you're going to parody grunge, what better song to go for than Smells Like Teen Spirit, the pinnacle of grunge pop rock? With the Offspring song Self-Esteem, it's difficult to deny that It Smells Like Teen Spirit must have had quite a heavy influence upon that. Having said that, Song 2 and Self-Esteem are both really great songs in their own right. I missed out a few things from this list that I could have put on, for example, DDP's theme, Self High Five. Now, I remember this when I got it was a WCW Mayhem or Backstage or something like that years ago. And there was these really cool songs that a lot of the wrestlers had. And it's only when I got Nevermind that I found out it's because they'd ripped off most of the songs from that album. So something like that was, intentionally made to sound exactly like Smells Like Teen Spirit, but just different enough so they wouldn't get sued. I've left off the list for kind of obvious reasons. To be perfectly honest, I found structuring the songs for this video quite difficult. In the end, I just kind of opted for what flowed best musically in terms of being able to bring some dynamics up and down, while also trying to group together the songs that were sort of similar and transition from one kind of style into another. Having said that, I thought it would also be quite interesting to see what the songs were like chronologically, so don't worry, I'm not going to go through them all again. I've just brought up an image here where you can see the songs and how they were released according by date. So first of all, we've got Wild Thing. This was originally recorded in 1965 by a different band, but I've never heard this original version, so I can't really comment on it. The Trogs one, which most people know, was released in 1966. On from this, you got Search and Destroy and 20th Century Boy, both in 1973. Doctor Doctor in the following year, AC/DC's TNT in 1975. 1976 sees More Than a Feeling, and it also sees the original version of Since You've Been Gone. However, the rainbow cover, the one that I've referenced here, was not released until 1979. After this, I Love Rock and Roll in 1981, Rock You Like a Hurricane 1984, No Sleep Till Brooklyn 1986, considerably after the initial TNT released by AC/DC, Monkey Gone to Heaven released in 1989, which I was a bit surprised with because I thought this was more contemporary, but at the same time the Pixies were one of those bands that were a huge precursor to the whole grunge scene. Smells Like Teen Spirit and Lithium both in 91, Say It Ain't So 94, When I Come Around 94 as well, and Self-Esteem 94 too. So this is what I'm talking about by the impact Nirvana had upon these bands. Song 2, 97, Hate to Say I Told You So 2000, Teenage Dirtbag also 2000, Fell in Love with a Girl 2001, and Feeder 2001 as well. I often thought that way of looking at it was interesting because it kind of highlights that there's not often a direct influence to something and there's quite a few different things coming in. So for example, if you looked at Fell in Love with a Girl, that's got much more in common with something from the Stooges than it does from the Beastie Boys. This also ties in with this thing you get to do with creativity, which is it starts off generally with imitation, then you'll deconstruct that imitation, sort of find out how it works, and construct something similar to what you've imitated but a bit different. Do this with other things and then combine this all together to create something that's more unique to you and more individual. Some of you might have noticed there's actually 2 guitar tracks going on in that video, so to explain what was happening there, the one on the left was the one that you see me playing live. The one on the right I actually ended up doing in one take as well. Because of the changes in tempos, I found it easier to just play through it in a one rather than try and drop in for each section. The one on the right, however, what I did was re-amped it. So between the songs you'll notice subtle differences. I did this to try and make it sound a bit more like the original, and I wondered if making the effort to try and get it to replicate something a bit more similar to the source material would make the riffs more distinct from each other. For the track on the left I had a relatively clean sound, and I'd either just hit a bit harder or stand on an overdrive if I wanted a bit of distortion. The reason I did this was to have a bit more consistency, and I thought in juxtaposition to having the things that were, chopping and changing every riff or so, it would make an interesting contrast. The best analogy I can think of for this video is a bit like musical Chinese whispers. So, just like Chinese whispers, you have one thing at the start and it maybe goes through about 20 people, then what comes out the other end is almost unrecognisable to the initial idea. And this to me was actually a really interesting concept. So what I'm going to do now is play a riff, and you can listen to it as many times as you want, but I'd say just once. And then make your own version of it. So you can either try and be as accurate and replicate it as much as possible, or you can take 1 or 2 ideas from it and change it to something that you prefer. Right, once you've done this, what I'd suggest you do is you challenge your friend to do the same thing to your riff. And we see how many steps it takes to get something that's either really similar or totally different from the original source material. Now I understand that this is a very small channel with a rather limited reach, and it's unlikely to yield any huge results, but I thought it'd be an interesting, fun experiment to try nonetheless. Cool, so as always, hopefully you guys managed to take something useful away from this video. If you enjoy the content of this channel, please consider to like, share, comment, subscribe if you feel so inclined. Cheers.